Thank you very much for sponsoring it, Rabbi Perlow.
It's a beautiful thing to see everyone coming to learn.
I think they came for breakfast. I want to burst your bubble.
Even if they have ulterior motives,
Right.
It's a beautiful thing that everyone made it to the base medrash today to get some learning, take advantage of the legal holiday. David HaMelech, King David, says that despite the fact that the other kings, they are preoccupied with the kingly matters of involving themselves in their wealth and in their honor, he nevertheless, Adabre de Secha, he talks about the edus, the testimony of God, Hashem's statutes, Hashem's laws. He talks about the Torah, despite the fact that he's in their group of kings. So too this community here, the modern day America, the American Jew are like kings. They could do whatever they want. They could spend their legal holidays however they want, and it's a special thing to have people come in, a beautiful thing to have people come in and take advantage of the day with the tefillah, with the mitzvahs, with learning Torah. So you saw that today we're focusing on the mitzvah of Tefillin today, a very, very precious mitzvah. Chazal tell us, the sages tell us in the Gemara and Kedushin that the mitzvah of Tefillin is compared to Kol Torah Kula, is compared to the entirety of the Torah. Try to explain that a little bit. Why there's so much emphasis on the mitzvah of Tefillin, why it is so all-encompassing, the mitzvah of Tefillin. To start, there's a very strange Gemara in brachos, Maseches brachos. The Gemara tells us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wears tefillin, that God wears tefillin. A very strange thing. It's an anthropomorphism, like we have many times in the Torah. Hashem doesn't have a head, doesn't have an arm to put tefillin on. But whatever it means, the Gemara tells us, on whatever level it means, that Hashem wears tefillin. So the Gemara asks, what does it say? What does it say on God's tefillin? The Gemara tells us that it says, Mi kamocha, Mi ka'amcha Yisrael, go yachad ba'aretz, who is like you, the nation of Israel, a single nation, a unique nation in the world, a nation that is unique as the Am HaNivchar, the Am Hashem, the chosen nation, the nation which is chosen to be the nation of God, to bring godliness into the world. Basically, it has in it the praises of Klal Yisrael, the praises of the Jewish nation. That's what is written in the Tefillin of Hashem. Similarly, when we wear Tefillin, we are trying to do a similar thing. Just as God's Tefillin are an expression of the covenantal relationship that the Jewish people have with Hashem, Kaviyachol, as if it were possible, puts the Jewish nation on his head and on his arm. So too we try to follow the ultimate expression of Ava, the ultimate expression of love, the ultimate expression of wanting to be close. We take the fundamental values, our fundamental connecting points of the Torah, of how we can connect to God, and we bind it to our arm and to our head to express the same idea, our dveikus, our wanting to cleave to God. Therefore, in the Tefillin, we put in some of the four fundamental concepts that we have in the Torah. We put in the parsha of Kadesh, which is about yetzias Mitzrayim, leading to Matan Torah, the exodus from Egypt, leading to receiving the Torah, becoming God's chosen nation. We put in there the parsha of Vayakhel V'yecha, which tells us that our responsibility to transmit to the upcoming generations. The parsha of Shema Yisrael, where we focus on God's unity and our relationship, our deep relationship with God that's built on love, V'ahavta. And finally, the parsha of Hayam Shemoah, the parsha where we declare our acceptance of adhering to Hashem's mitzvahs. So of course, we could understand that if we're literally taking the fundamental core values of the Torah and binding them to ourselves as an expression of closeness, showing that we want this attached to us. This is what we want this to be part of us. We of course need to learn how to do this in the right way. So that's why we're dedicating this session, and everyone will speak pretty briefly, but just to take some of the main points. And the idea is that we should is twofold. Number one, that when people know about the Tefillin, they know about the mitzvahs, they know about the halachos, they have a greater appreciation for the mitzvahs that they're doing. And secondly, we want to accomplish a mitzvah. We want to do it according to halachah. In order to accomplish a mitzvah, sometimes in the right way, sometimes to accomplish it at all, it needs to be done as it was dictated to Moshe Rabbeinu. So I'm just going to address one quick topic. The other members of the call are going to come after. Everything will be, around 5 minutes each, just to cover a basic topic. The whole thing will be less than 20 minutes, and I think that there will be a lot that will be gained from these most essential ideas of Tefillin. I just want to say one other thing, is I encourage everyone, this is just to bring awareness, but this community is blessed with excellent Rabbanim. Rabbi Ashkenazi, Rabbi Teitelbaum, they're here, they're masters of halachah, they're students of great Torah giants, and they are available to answer questions in the area of Tefillin and in general the areas of mitzvah performance. And everyone should bother them a lot and ask a lot of questions and seek to perform the mitzvahs at the highest level. One quick halacha about the Tefillin is, where is the proper placement for the Tefillin? So we have the Tefillin Shel Yad, the hand Tefillin, and the Tefillin Shel rosh, the head Tefillin. The Tefillin Shel Yad, the Gemara says that since the pasuk says Yadecha, the Gemara makes a drasha Yad Keya, that it should be put on the weaker hand. So therefore, a righty puts their Tefillin on the left hand, and the lefty puts their Tefillin on the right hand, each one putting it on their weaker hand. It's specifically supposed to go on the weaker hand. If a person does some activities with their right hand and some activities with their left hand, that's a big question, and they should consult a rabbi. Now, where on the arm should the tefillin go? So the Gemara derives that it's supposed to go on what's called the kibores. The kibores, I think nowadays we would translate as the bicep, is the muscle on one's arm. Now, what that for sure is coming to the exclusion of, and you can see it on the pictures we have here, is the exclusion of being close to the elbow. It should not be where the bulge starts to go down, and there's no longer a bulge, and it's going into the person's elbow. That is the main thing that we want to avoid. If a person puts on his tefillin and it's partially in their elbow area, it is like they're not wearing tefillin. So they want to make sure that it's up higher on the bulge where their bicep is. That's the main point that they want to focus on when it talks about the Shel Yad. There's also a very big debate about how high up could it go. So there's a big debate, can it go higher than this bulge? Some say the most ideal place for the tefillin should be, and usually this is where people have it. This is in contrast to what we're going to talk about after, this is usually done in the proper way, is that it should be on the lower half of the bicep. Not close to, not by the elbow, but on the bicep on the lower half. If it's a little bit higher, according to some authorities, that is also okay. On the elbow, or partially on the elbow, that's for sure a problem. That's with the Tefillin Shel Yad. Additionally, the Tefillin Shel Yad should be curved a little bit, tilted towards one's heart, because it says Al Vavecha. We want the Tefillin Shel Yad should be towards one's heart. Now the Tefillin Shel, so the hand Tefillin, sometimes sometimes it falls down, and sometimes you have an issue. But for the most part, it's less common that there is an error. In contrast, the Tefillin Shel rosh, the head tefillin, is a fascinating and maybe disturbing topic. It's a topic that has been yelled about for over 400 years by the poskim, that there has always been a misconception that the Tefillin Shel rosh can go below the hairline. Now the Torah says that it should be put beinei necha. However, right between the eyes. However, the sages, the Talmud teach us between the eyes means when we're talking horizontally, right? That it should this way or this way. That it should be in parallel centered. It's just teaching that it's supposed to be centered. However, when it says beinei necha, that has nothing to do with vertically where the tefillin are supposed to be. So the Gemara learns out a derivation that it's supposed to be in the place of the hair, meaning where the hairs start to sprout. So that means that the entire tefillin needs to be behind one's hairline. Now, if a person's tefillin don't fit him well, this is extremely difficult. That's why we have here today Rabbi Marks, I think Rabbi Posner also. If anyone wants to help get their tefillin fit, that they should be able to fit it into that spot. They're happy to help after the short presentations here. This topic is just, it's really a fascinating thing, because very often you find these things in the poskim that were minhagim that were a problem, that there was a common mistake. And then they correct themselves over time, and by the time they get to us, we don't even see it. Like, for example, Rabbi Perlow talked about recently, there was a common minhag, people thought mezuzah only needs to go on the front door, right? The poskim talked about it a few hundred years ago. Now it's very uncommon. Everyone knows, people know that the mezuzah is not only going on the front door, the mezuzah is going on each doorway. But this issue, for some reason, is an extremely hard issue to fix. Rav Kook, actually, Ray Haston has a sefer. Rav Kook has a whole sefer dedicated just to this one point about the tefillin being behind the hairline. These pictures that you see on the table, this was created by an organization that literally was started in order to publicize this one halachah, that people should have their tefillin in an organization based in Lakewood that basically goes around trying to teach this point, that the tefillin, mainly what they're coming to fix is that the tefillin Shel rosh should be behind the hairline. So I encourage everyone to... Yes.
So are you saying the entire base of the tefillin needs to be behind, not half of it, or the entire, so the front end has to be behind that hair?
Exactly.
But at the same time, you don't want it...
So that's a good point, how far it could go. Very good, I should have mentioned that. So the Tefillin Shel rosh, it actually is not very limited in how far back it can go. It can go back quite a few inches. The Gemara tells us that it can go as far as the soft spot on the baby.
Oh, wow.
Now, I don't know if people have had babies or grandkids recently that they know where that soft spot is. It's not so far up. So you really have, I've never in my whole life, probably no one has ever seen anyone that's tefillin were too far back. Never happens. No one's tefillin are ever too far back. In fact, they'll probably fall off the person's head. So that's really not an issue. So a person should always err on the side of having his tefillin higher up. Ideally, that there should be some space of hair, of the place where the hair starts to sprout, before their tefillin are. And like Gad is pointing out, this doesn't just mean that part of the tefillin should be there. It means, right, because we need the entire tefillin, right? In order to get the value of the tefillin, we need the whole tefillin. So we need the entire tefillin to be in the correct spot. And therefore, we should, Mitzvah Hashem, we should all strive to put it in this, yeah.
So in terms of the hairline, that's going to vary from person to person.
Yes, so everyone goes by their own hairline.
Okay, so if someone has no hair, someone's bald.
So very good. If their hairline starts to recede, they go by what their hairline used to be.
Okay.
If they're bald, they could still be Mekayim Tefillin. It just means that where their hairline was, that is the place where their tefillin should be.
What if you don't remember where
You
should
Go err
Put
on the
it-
side of being high.
Like I said, err on the side of being high, you'll never go wrong. You'll never go wrong. Err on the side of it being high, you'll never go wrong. It'll always be in the correct spot if it's higher. And if a person's hair starts to recede, though, then they should take note that they have some leeway. They don't have to make themselves crazy. If their hairline starts to recede backwards, it does not give them a smaller spot to put their tefillin on. They can still go where it used to be.
Now, I've heard that there's an area on the top of your head that's supposed to be near, it's supposed to go behind that area. That's like
Kosher.
a little bulge or something, right?
So
along
the
this
cat.
area. And so is that an area that we need to be concerned about, or it doesn't matter as long as you're above the hairline?
So the actual bias, meaning the actual tefillin itself, that black thing, the box, you don't have to worry about it. Essentially, you're not going to put it in a place which is too high. The knot, though, it might be what you're referring to.
Well,
The knot in
has
the
to be
back
that's
should
right,
go
the knot.
on the person's hair. So that shouldn't be the knot that's in the back of the head shouldn't be on the neck, but rather should be on the person's head.
The little nap, the little indentation.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly,
right?
exactly. Okay, Rabbi Segal.
All right, so drawing off of what Rabbi Perlow mentioned, you mentioned the 4 different paragraphs that we have inside of our tefillin. I want to pose a question, a simple question, and a really powerful idea that comes out of it. So the 4 paragraphs, how are they ordered in the tefillin? What's the order of things? So the simple tefillin that everybody has, the order of the 4 paragraphs is in the order that they are in the Torah. So you've got the first one mentioned, Exodus 13, 1 through 10. But they're discussing the remembrance of the yetzias Mitzrayim of the Exodus. So that's the first one over here. And then we've got the next one is Exodus 13, 11 through 16. The next one that has to do with the yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus. All the firstborns are all holy. We have to bring korbanos of all the firstborn animals and make it holy. And that's the second one. It'll be over here. And then we've got, after that, the Shema that we're familiar with, and the Hayim Shema that we're familiar with. So Shema is the next, and then Hayim Shema will be next. However, many probably have noticed that sometimes you find people that they take off their tefillin, especially in the Hasidic world. They take off their tefillin in the middle of davening, and they put on a new tefillin. What is this new tefillin? It's called the Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. What's Rabbeinu Tam tefillin? So the only difference between Rabbeinu Tam tefillin and the regular tefillin is the last 2 parshiyos are flipped. Okay, so the Shema and the Vahaya, instead of being Shema here and Vahaya here, they switch it. Vahaya is here and Shema is over there. That's the whole difference. There's a disagreement in the Gemara which way to go, so some are stringent on that point. But it's a stringency that most of us don't have, and the classic way is to just have, the tefillin we wear is just all the parshiyos in order, all the paragraphs in order. But I want to just pose a simple question, which really brings out this powerful point. The 4 parshiyos are in the tefillin, right? These 4 parshiyos, we've got the unity of God and the schar va'onish, reward and punishment, and the leaving the exodus from Egypt. In the mezuzah, which also is something which apparently we have to focus on specific paragraphs in the Torah when we enter into our house, enter into our rooms in our house, right? The mezuzah only has 2 of those paragraphs, the Shema and the Vahaya. The ones that we say in the Kriyas and the Shema every day. Why is it that the other 2 paragraphs are missing? Right? It's so important that we should bind it to our body. The yetzias Mitzrayim, the concept of leaving Egypt, why is it that it doesn't come in the mezuzah, which when we enter our house also we should be focusing on that, you would think. So I think the simple and such a powerful idea is as follows, that You know, if you think about yourself in Egypt. Right? Feel yourself, you're in Egypt, and terrible persecution, slavery. There's no end to this, decades and decades and decades, and nothing doing. We're just stuck there forever. And then we have this, all of a sudden, Moshe Rabbeinu comes, and God, through Moshe Rabbeinu, takes us out. Not just taking out, but there's miracles, week after week after week, and then eventually we got the Makas Bechuros, the finality, and the firstborns die, and we're all saved, and we leave. And you think about that amazing feeling and understanding and realization of the power of God. It's something which it's internal. We have it, and it's an experience that we have within ourselves. It's not something which, the general way to perceive the commandments is, which is true, that the commandments change us. When we do a commandment, it changes us because it makes us better, closer to God. This is all true, but there's something much deeper here, and that is that the closeness to God and the recognition of God's power and our hakaras hatov, that our whole existence based on God taking us out of Egypt, is internal. It exists within it. We got to pull it out. So the tefillin we bind to ourselves. It's not just the Shema V'Haya. We bind to ourselves these tefillin. It's pulling out of our mind and our heart. It's expression of pulling out that which exists already within us. What is that? That we have that closeness to God. We have that hakaras hatov to God. The mezuzah is something which we have to remember. When we go into our houses, we have to remember. The house is built on wood. It's built on materials. There's no experience that the house had coming out of Egypt. That's us building a house and making the place of our home a place that we could recognize God. So that's the idea I would like to pull out. It's such a powerful new perception and general on all the commandments of the Torah.
Rabbi Marks.
So I wanted to discuss a little bit the requirements of tefillin. Tefillin are very interesting in that the psukim, the verses say almost nothing about them. They say you should tie something on your head and on your arm. It calls it totafos. The Gemara derives from there that the Shel rosh has 4 compartments, but the specifications of tefillin really are all left as halachah Moshe Sinai's. The Gemara, primarily in Menachos, brings a list of requirements that are ma'akev, that are absolutely necessary for tefillin to be kosher, that have no biblical source. They're all just things that were told to Moshe by Har Sinai, and we have a oral tradition about them. They are that the tefillin the tefillin have to be square. So if your tefillin look like this, you should get them fixed because these are not very square. The parts that have to be square, the Gemara says, is the ribua and the tefillah. So that the stitches on the tefillin, there are 3 stitches on each side to hold the tefillin closed. Those stitches have to be a square. The top and bottom of the compartment have to be a square, and the top and bottom of what's called the tatura, the base of the tefillin, also have to be square. The piece sticking out in the back doesn't affect the squareness because we niche it. So there you have the 4 corners, and then it goes in, and then there's a clearly separate piece that doesn't take away from the squareness sticking out. The Gemara also says that piece called a mavarta, bridge, that the strap goes through. That's also a halachah Moshe Sinai, that the tefillin have to have a compartment to put the strap through, in order that you're able to tighten them on. The shin on the tefillin is a halachah Moshe Sinai. Something that Hashem told Moshe by Har Sinai, and there's not written down in the Torah. We just have an oral tradition about it. That there's a shin pulled out of the sides of the leather on the Shel rosh, and and two things.
Same for Ashkenazi and Sephardi.
Ashkenaz and Sephardi, halachah Moshe Misina is things that Hashem told Moshe by Sinai are the same for Ashkenaz and Sephardi.
Well, the shape of the shin is different.
The shape of the shin is different because the Sephardim used the Sephardic ksav for the shin, and the Ashkenazim used the Ashkenazi ksav for the shin. But they both have the shin. The next point, actually, there's more difference between Ashkenazim and Sephardim. The Gemara says that the straps of the tefillin have to be black on the outside, and the inside they could be any color but red, because we don't want people to think that they got colored from blood from wounds or whatever, or something like that. But there is discussion about whether the bias itself, whether the box of the tefillin also has to be black. The Shulchan Aruch says that it doesn't have to be, but it's better to make it black. The Gra and some Ashkenazi poskim think that when the Gemara says it has to be, that the ritzuos have to be black, it means even the ritzuos. So there is some dispute as to whether the tefillin themselves being black is a halachah Moshe Sinai or just something that's highly recommended but not necessarily, that doesn't necessarily matter. And finally, the last thing that the Gemara brings is that the knot of the Shel rosh in the back forms a dalid, which there are two different ways of doing that. One is the classic Ashkenazi way, which is only 400 or 500 years old, is that the knot itself is shaped like a dalid, or there's another thing called where the knot is square, and then the two straps coming together in the square knot are what forms the dalid. Those are those are all basic components of tefillin that are required, and that pretty much covers everything. It doesn't give you much leeway, which is why everyone's tefillin look the same, with the exception of size. The size of tefillin, the Gemara doesn't say anything. The later poskim already say, I recommend not making them smaller, the entire thing, than 2 fingers by 2 fingers, which is pretty small. Problem is, if you go smaller than that, you're going to have to you have to fit your parchments inside. You're going to have to write them tiny, and then they're worried that they're not going to fit so well. The Chabad, I think, make the top of the bias already 2 fingers by 2 fingers, which is not, again, it's not, they're not so, these are that big also. It's not, but that's really the only difference you'll see about people's tefillin is the sizes. Other than that, they're pretty much identical because we have oral traditions that kind of limit pretty much every facet of how you make the tefillin.
Rabbi, what's the significance of the dalid? Why a dalid?
We have a shin on the side of the Shel rosh, a dalid in the knot on the back of the head, and then a yud in the knot on the arm. Shin, dalid, yud is one of Hashem's names. So we have to have Hashem's name on the tefillin.
Rabbi Posner.
So the benefit of having a joint minyan and event with Ashkenazim and Sephardim is that we can clearly point out the difference between the Ashkenazic custom and the Sephardic custom. By now it looks like we're mainly Ashkenazim, so I might know the answer, might be clear what the majority, but by show of hands, when a person puts on their tefillin, right, we put on 2 pieces of tefillin like we've been talking about. There's the shel yad on your arm and the shel rosh on your head. So by show of hands, who, when you put your tefillin on, make one bracha, only one bracha on the shel yad and on the shel rosh? Anyone here do that? Rabbi Ashkenazi? Yeah. Oh, you? Huh? Oh, yeah. So there 3 or how many? 20, 25 people in here. There are 3 or 4 people in here that they only make one bracha when they're putting on the tefillin. They make on the shel yad, and then that's it. You don't make on the shel rosh. How about who makes 2 brachas on the tefillin? That's the vast majority. So we have these clear 2 different customs. We have mainly Sephardim who make one bracha on the tefillin, whereas Ashkenazic make 2 brachas on the tefillin. So just for 2 minutes, I just wanted to give a little background in where these 2 customs come from, where this difference comes from. So the Gemara says in a very interesting halachah. The Gemara says if you speak between putting on one tefillin and the other tefillin, you need to make a new bracha. That's what the Gemara says. So you put on your Shel Yad, you put it on, and then your friend says, "Hi, how you doing?" And you say, "Fantastic." You messed up. You got to make a new bracha. So that's what the Gemara says. But the Gemara has a question. The Gemara says that we have a statement. We have a statement that says you make two brachos on the tefillin. You put the Shel Yad on. You make the bracha of lahaniach tefillin, which means to place the tefillin. And then you put on the Shel Rosh, the head tefillin, and you make the bracha of al mitzvah's tefillin on the mitzvah, on the commandment of tefillin. So we have a question. That it sounds like you only make a new bracha if you talk. Whereas in the statement that the Gemara brings to ask a question from, it says that you make two brachos. One of the brachos on the Shel Yad and one on the Shel Rosh. So the Gemara answers that really it's not a question. The answer is that when you don't talk, you make one bracha. When you talk, you make two brachos. So when you don't talk, so we're going to have a disagreement here in the Gemara how to understand it. But simply the Gemara seems to be saying that when you don't talk, you just make one bracha of lahaniach tefillin. And that's all. And the Gemara is saying, however, if you do talk, you make a new bracha when you put on the Shel Rosh of al mitzvah's tefillin. That seems to be what the Gemara is saying. This is how Rashi, the most basic commentary in the Gemara, that's the way he explains the Gemara. So, according to this, that would be why those that raise their hand, that they only make one bracha, right? That's because, assuming you didn't talk between the placement of the hand tefillin and of the head tefillin, the Gemara seems to be saying that you only make one bracha. That's opinion number one. So, Tosfos comes along, and Tosfos has a question. You're telling me that, according to this, what comes out is that we instituted a special bracha for a person that basically did an avera, right? You're not supposed to talk between putting the two things on because they're connected, and he talked. So you know what we do? We say, here, have another bracha. You get your own special bracha. It doesn't make sense that we would give this person his own special bracha when he puts on the new tefillin. So he doesn't like that explanation of the Gemara. He has a few other questions, but so he doesn't like this explanation of the Gemara. So what Tosfos says is no. Really, right, just to remind ourselves, the Gemara said that when you talk, you make a new bracha. When you don't talk, you don't make a new bracha. So Tosfos says, no. You misunderstood the Gemara. What the Gemara is saying is that when you don't talk, you make one bracha on the Shel Yad, lahaniach tefillin, and you make another bracha of al mitzvah's tefillin on the Shel Rosh. That's if you don't talk. What if you do talk? Then, because you made a separate interruption between putting on the Shel Yad and the Shel Rosh, the head and the hand tefillin, so you need to repeat the bracha that you made on the hand tefillin. So what's the explanation of this? The explanation of this is that really when a person puts on the hand tefillin and they make the bracha of lahaniach tefillin, to place tefillin, so really they're making a bracha on the hand tefillin, and they're making this same bracha, that bracha is going on the placement of the head tefillin. Therefore, if you spoke in between putting on the hand tefillin and the head tefillin, so you interrupted that bracha and the placement of the head tefillin, therefore you need to repeat the same bracha, and when you put on the head tefillin, it's going to end up that you're going to make two different brachas, according to this opinion. This opinion is going to say you're going to make the normal bracha of al mitzvah's tefillin, and then you're going to repeat the bracha of lahaniach tefillin, because that bracha needs to go on the placement of the head tefillin, and you spoke. Whereas according to Rashi just says you make the bracha of lahaniach tefillin, and if you speak, only if you speak, you make the new bracha of al mitzvah's tefillin. And this is brought down in Shulchan Aruch, and the Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber, who Sephardim usually go like, he paskins like Rashi. He says that you only make the second bracha if you talk, and really normally you only make the bracha on the Shel Yad. And the Ramah, which is normally how the Ashkenaz, and he says this is the minhag of the Ashkenazim, he says that no, you make two brachos always, and if you talk, you repeat the bracha of lahaniach tefillin. Yes.
Question. Since you don't, my understanding at least, is just to say a blessing in vain. So, you know, you do any mitzvah, you're saying a blessing, or you forget even, and you can't remember if you said it or didn't. It's best not to say it because you're saying it in vain.
Right.
I don't understand how this fits with this, because the instance that you're talking about, they have, at least there's one opinion that you repeat the bracha. And I don't understand why that's not saying it in vain.
Well, you're repeating it because it's not saying it in vain, because even though you already said it,
Right.
but you made the bracha on basically two separate acts. This single bracha was supposed to cover two separate actions. One action is the placement of the hand tefillin. The second bracha, the second action is the placement of the head tefillin. So therefore, if you speak in between the placement of the hand tefillin and the placement of the head tefillin, so now the bracha no longer covers the head tefillin because you made an interruption between the two things.
Okay, so you would not be repeating the bracha on the arm tefillin.
Correct. Well, it's already on.
Yeah.
And right. So really, you just
okay,
have I mean, you're making the same bracha again, but now it's to cover this single action of putting on the head tefillin.
Okay.